Well, I want to welcome all of you who are joining us for the next live stream hangout. You may be hearing some noise there. We got a printer going on in the background, but I do want to say my name is Kia Stevens. Hold on a minute. Of the Father Swap blog, where we purpose to help you exchange your father wounds for the love of God the Father. And we exist to help women who have experienced father loss by way of divorce, abandonment, abuse, incarceration, drug addiction, alcoholism, maybe physical presence or emotional absence. We are here to serve you. And I'm so honored to have my guest tonight, Lauren Ulrich, who is going to be helping us delve deeper in the subject of when you've never met your father. Lauren, can you just give a little shout out and say hey?
Hi, Kia. I'm so glad that we can connect tonight.
So sweet and Southern. She's
Yes.
a Southern
yes, fellow Georgia peach. Like you.
Yeah. Well, I was thinking about you being from South Carolina, which I'm getting ready to tell you about. Let me just say that, again, as always, we deal with mature content. So if you have children in the room, I do want to ask that you move them to another room, although it's pretty late, but my kids are still up, which is saying a lot. But move them to another room. If you should have questions during the broadcast, you can contact me via info@FatherSwap, or you can tweet me a question at FatherSwap. And with that said, I am going to go ahead and share a little bit with you about Lauren. Lauren is, as I mentioned, originally from Georgia, but she resides in the low country of South Carolina. Our neighbor, she is a wife and a stay-at-home mama of boys like myself. And she's also a former elementary school teacher like myself. So we have a lot in common here. And she's passionate about women knowing the love of God the Father. And I'm excited to say that she just recently, was it yesterday or today when you launched your blog?
It was actually today.
Today. So that's great. So she is launching her blog today, Abba's Girl Forever. And that link is going to be in the description section of the YouTube page. And she just has a very unique story and a unique heart to minister and encourage women who have experienced father loss. Let me give you her tagline, which is to serve. She serves to encourage women to remain anchored in the Father's love. And if anybody knows that, I would say Lauren does. I actually, generally, I stalk all my guests, Lauren. But I think Lauren might have stalked me first. I think maybe she did. I started to notice her likes on Facebook, and I was like, man, who is this? Who is this girl? Who is Lauren Ulrich? And some kind of way we ended up having a conversation. Maybe I said I wanted to interview you. I think that's what it was. And I was thinking that her father died. I thought her father died. So don't make assumptions. Do not make assumptions. And after I had a conversation with her, I was really blown away by her story. So I'm honored to have you here, Lauren. You have weathered a lot. And I would love for you to just kind of begin that conversation by sharing your experience with father loss.
Sure. Well, yeah, first of all, I just want to thank you again for having me on here, Kia. I have been so blessed by your blog, Father Swap. And you're correct. I think I was the one stalking you first. Because your blog just stood out to me on so many levels and really connected with my story of growing up without a dad and, you know, having not actually met my dad up to this point. So anyways, I'll dive on into my story. So it all began with my mom facing an unplanned pregnancy. back in the 80s in Atlanta. And she was a working professional at the time, just in the prime of her career and young adulthood, and suddenly found herself pregnant. And she was in no way in a committed relationship with my dad. It was just one of those little flings, and I mean, she was very surprised and found herself pregnant. And of course, her immediate decision at that point was to have an abortion. That just seemed logical to her. It wasn't in her plans to have a baby. And what happened is she did spend a few weeks, though, talking to several pastors, priests, friends, whatever you want to call them, just to ponder the decision, even though she kind of had it made in her mind. So long story short, it was January 1984. She made an appointment for an abortion, but a friend of hers said, wait a minute, Stella, I think you just need to talk to this couple that I know through church. Just give them a shot. Just talk to them before you move forward with your abortion. And so essentially she had made the appointment for a Friday. And she said, okay, well, I'll just delay it until Monday. I'll talk to this couple this weekend, but then I'm just going to move forward with the appointment. So that was the plan. But it turns out she met with this couple. And they weren't just any couple. They were actually involved in the pro-life movement in Atlanta. And they were Christians. And not only was there all that, but they actually met with my mom on pro-life weekend, like sanctity of life, weekend, Sunday. That weekend they decided not to do the march, and they met with her. And it was just a life-changing experience for my mom. She really heard the gospel and really understood the love of Jesus at that point. And she just had a radical encounter with her Savior, and she became a Christian that day after meeting with the couple. And of course, it made her reconsider her decision to have an abortion. And then what ended up really solidifying that decision was she went to church the next day. And it happened to be Charles Stanley's church. Mm-hmm. And that couple met her and sat with her. And, they just reiterated, their pro-life support. And they really followed up with that and saying, listen, we even want to open up our home so you can stay with us after the delivery, and we'll help you care for the baby in the months following the birth. And so all of that, just the outpouring of God's love and people being the hands and feet of Jesus really changed my mom's life. And so she moved forward with the pregnancy, and 8 months later I was born on August 8, 1984. So as far as my dad is concerned, my mom ended up deciding not to tell him that I was, truly his child. He knew that my mom was pregnant, but he questioned whether it was his child just because of the circumstances. And my mom never pushed proving his paternity because she had become a Christian at that point, and she just prayed and realized that my dad's involvement may not be a positive experience at that point. So that was kind of what happened. She moved forward with her life as a single mom, and just really started following after Jesus.
Wow, that's pretty incredible. So let me ask you, because I think growing up, however you're living, that's your normal. That's your normal. At what point did you begin to realize my normal is unique in relationship to a lot of other people's normal?
Well, that's a good question. I'd say that I have a pretty vivid memory of remembering my family situation was different for the first time when I was about 4 or 5 years old. I remember being in a kindergarten class, and I was asked to draw a picture of my family. And I have this memory of, starting to draw my mom and me, and then looking around me at other kids' pictures, and I saw the dad and the mom and the siblings, and I thought, oh, okay, my situation's different. And I remember feeling ashamed, like I wanted to kind of cover up what I was drawing, like I just, I felt awkward about it. So I think though I had this like sense of God though in all of it, because I remember drawing a cloud above my mom and me. And to me, it spoke of God kind of as this father figure. But that was a vivid memory of feeling like my situation was different.
Wow, that's incredible. Lauren, did you tell your mom about that experience? And did you ever, when did you guys begin to talk about your story?
Well, I remember starting to talk about it when I was pretty young, like around that point when I was, 5 years old or so. There started to be occasions where dads were invited to events. Like, I remember in kindergarten, all the dads were invited to visit the class for some special event, and it was dads only. And so, of course, that made me question where's my dad and all that. So, I think my mom and I started to have more open discussions about my father. Although, she didn't press into lots of details with me, if that makes sense.
It does make sense. I'm kind of like, I'm dreading all the difficult conversations with my kids. My kids are young.
Mm-hmm.
What types of things did she say that you can share? And I do want to respect,
Sure.
the relationship with your mom, but what did she say to you to kind of, I guess, put you at ease or to explain that? Because that's a really difficult thing to explain to a 5-year-old, 6-year-old.
Sure. Yeah, I mean, I remember her sharing when I was younger that, essentially my dad just wasn't involved because it was the best decision for me. And, my mom was really vocal about her faith. So, she talked about that, how, she became a Christian and my dad wasn't one. And so therefore, she just didn't feel good about me being exposed to certain things if I was just with my dad, So she usually kept it short and simple.
Okay.
And then later on, as I got older, I found out a little bit more. Like actually at first I didn't know that my dad didn't know that I was his daughter. Like, do you know what I mean? Like I had always thought, oh, he knew, but he just chose to leave. Like that was a big realization for me, and really understanding that he truly didn't know for sure. And I later found out that he went on and got married and had other children. So that, and I knew he wasn't local, but yeah.
Wait, say that again. Say that last part again.
I knew he wasn't local. He didn't.
Oh, okay.
So,
I want to ask you, when you found out that your dad didn't know about you, was there something inside of you that was kind of like, what if he didn't know? Maybe and I really was going to go here later on in the interview, but I'm just going to go here. And I know this is tender, so you could be like, no, Kia, you are not Oprah. Was there something inside of you that was like, okay, wow, he didn't know, so maybe I could go ahead and try to reach out to him or contact him? Was there anything like that?
well,
Like he might want to know me. He might want to know me if he knows I exist.
Yes, yes. Yeah, as I've gotten older, I've pondered trying to get in touch with him. I will say that it made it easier for me knowing that he didn't really know I was his daughter. Do you know what I mean? Like,
Uh-huh.
because I think for a long time I had thought it was more direct abandonment. And so, in some ways, it kind of made it easier for me. Um, but of course, it's always been in the back of my mind whether I should meet him or not. So that's kind of like an ongoing, um, thought in the back of my mind.
Okay, I'm going to put a pin in there. I just want to say, because I know there's some women that are watching, and maybe you're saying, well, I did experience direct abandonment. My father did know about me, and he willingly chose to leave or chose to abandon my mom or chose to walk away. Let me say that the love of God still encompasses you and your circumstance.
Yes.
I too am in that situation. And although I have pursued my father later on in life, and I do have somewhat of a relationship with him, I know abandonment. I know what it feels like to wonder where my father is, or is he thinking about me? So I don't want you to, if you're watching and you're somehow feel like, oh well, her situation is better than mine. No, it's different, but we all are here because we have had similar father wounds, and the love
Yes.
of God is able to touch the depth of the ache in every woman, however it was formed. So I just wanted to say that. So
Definitely. And I think, the same lie comes into different circumstances with your dad. Whether he's physically absent or emotionally absent, a girl ends up feeling abandoned. So, so I really did wrestle with that. And I mean, and it is still is in a sense still abandonment. You know what I mean? Like my dad he didn't pursue involvement. I mean, if he had really wanted to, then there could have been a different outcome, or at least there would have been a little more involvement from the beginning, if that makes sense. So there was just a lot to process there. But I guess what I'm trying to say is, for me, a lot of my emotional baggage came from just the secrecy of my story, not really understanding all the details. So then it created a lot of vacuum, like a lot of space for lies to come in.
right, exactly. And I think the interesting thing too is that when you start to kind of deal with your childhood hurts and look at your parents, and you also have to begin to look at the time period, like the time period of when they grew up, and the time period of when they had the baby, and what was going on, and what could have been their mental state. It's just a lot to kind of factor, not to necessarily make excuses for parents, but just to have a well-rounded perspective of what was happening and how it happened, the way it happened. But I'm going to go back to something, but I want to say this too. You also see the sovereignty of God in the fact that you're here, and
Yeah.
the depth and the length that He went to get you here, and not just you, but other women who may be watching. God went to great lengths to get you here, irregardless of how and how pretty it wasn't, you know.
Yeah. Yeah.
So Lauren, let's talk about your growing up, and you have these challenges, things that you're wrestling with as it relates to your biological father. How did that impact you? You talked a little bit in elementary, but I want to grow you up a little bit, get you to maybe teenage Lauren or young adult Lauren. What were some of the challenges that you faced?
Well, as I got older, I definitely faced more insecurity, just in being more cognizant of my father's absence. For me in particular, I really struggled with body image. I remember just feeling fat at a young age, and being focused on trying to lose weight. And, yeah, just not feeling very beautiful, and I look back and I realize, okay, that was probably due to, in part, my father's absence. I didn't have that male affirmation of my femininity. Um, and then I also struggled with being open to guys in a healthy way. Like, I think that kind of with, fatherless girls, you have like these two extremes on the spectrum. You're either on one extreme where you just kind of go, you dive right into relationships. You're very open. You're looking, to have some needs met by guys, or you're really closed off. And that was me. I was very reserved. I was scared of getting hurt. So it was really hard for me to open up around guys romantically, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
So, I just, I could be friends with them in some ways, but it was really hard for me to go there romantically in some ways.
Yes, that is.
Until I, college, yeah, things started to change in college, but I didn't, have any serious boyfriends when I was in middle or high school. And I'm not saying that's all bad. Like, I can share more about that later, but there was definitely some brokenness in that too. If that makes sense.
Yeah, I was on the other end of the continuum.
Well, you know what? It's all, it's all the same. And I mean, I think another part of it for me too. I mentioned the weight and body image issue, but the final struggle for me that was very significant was my relationship with food. I look back and I saw food being a real comfort to me, a way to try to grapple with fatherlessness and feeling very out of control of my circumstances. So food was a real struggle. Like controlling food, kind of having this love-hate relationship with food. And I really was trying to kind of get kind of my father hunger satisfied or met with physical food. But of course, that was a futile struggle, but it was the way that I coped at that point. And that's still a walk of grace for me even today. So.
Thank you for sharing that, Lauren. I actually read a book by Janetta Rose Barr. She wrote, "Whatever Happened to Fatherless Daughters, the Impact of Fatherlessness on Black Women." And she talks about, although things she says are applicable to non-Black women, but she basically talks about how fatherlessness, the ache for her father, can, or just anyone's father, the ache could reveal itself as being a workaholic. It could reveal itself in your relationship with food. It could reveal itself in hypersexual activity. She just came down this long list of ways that it can reveal itself. And I think the culture is fairly familiar with promiscuity. But when we begin to talk about some of these other areas like food and like work, overworking ourselves, trying to prove ourselves or validate who we are, when we begin to unpack these areas, I think it can be a little bit more shocking.
Yes, and I'll mention one more thing because you made reference to it, but I also struggled with perfectionism. Like I wanted to be a high achiever in school, and I think I just part of it was just my upbringing. My mother was so committed to helping me with school and achieving excellence, and that was all good and everything. But there was another part of it that I think wanted to prove myself to my absent dad, like that I could measure up. So that was another struggle too, is being very perfectionistic and driven. And black and white about performance. Like if I failed at all, then I was a failure, sort of thing. So.
I know completely. I know 100.
You can relate?
Oh my gosh, yes. You know, I'm naturally driven, naturally kind of perfectionistic, but I remember in my head, and I still hear this voice that I have to say, no, 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 I've crucified with Christ. I'm a new creature. But of just saying, if I do this, then so-and-so will like me.
Mhm.
Or if I do this, then I'll be, you know, I'll be great, or I'll be, you know, loved and liked, and just constantly trying to get this bottomless pit of affirmation filled. You know, it's just like, okay, the next achievement, the next big thing, the next, the next, the next, the next, the next. And then also equally feeling very insecure when there was a woman or a teenage girl that was better than me at something. She could have been more attractive. She could have been more smarter. She could have had more accolades. And all of a sudden, the self-esteem that I was holding on to because I was doing, trying to maintain it and get it and feel the ache that I had for my father, just dwindled because now she took it, you know, with just feeling competitiveness. But I mean, that was futile. All that was futile. But yes, Lauren, I can relate 1000%.
Good to
So,
hear. Good to hear.
oh, yeah, that's why I love this blog, so that women can feel. You can feel if you're watching. You are not alone.
That's
You
right.
are not alone.
That's right.
Yes. Lauren, you're sharing some great nuggets here. So I want to talk about, how did you go from the eating habits and the closed offness, the withdrawnness, you know, from men? How did you get from that to, you know, health, to a place of healthiness?
Well, a real turning point for me was going to college. And I actually went to a Christian college pretty far from home, which is Atlanta. I went all the way up to the Midwest near Chicago at Wheaton College. And, you know, it was right where I needed to be because I really, I'd say, I guess I really faced fully the grief of my absent father there in college. I mean, I just, I think during my freshman year, I just really hit that wall of grief, and it was really hard to move on. And I think the Lord was just calling me to finally face the grief and to let others love on me and point me to God as a heavenly Father. So yeah, I think starting my sophomore year of college, I did start to get some counseling, and I was part of some counseling that had to do with inner healing prayer. I don't know if you're familiar with that.
I'm not.
You know, but there was a lot of prayer involved with these counselors, and that was exactly what I needed because I needed to hear from God. You know, I needed to let the Lord's voice just, you know, come and flood my heart and my mind, and reveal the lies that I believed about myself and about God. So counseling really helped, and that was a process for sure.
Can I interrupt you real quick and just want to unpack grief? Because when people think of grief, they think, okay, boo hoo hoo, you know, and sometimes it is that. For me, it is that. But what did it look like for you?
Well, you know, I would just have random times of breaking down and crying, especially at night, for a particular season. But, you know, probably underneath that was anger, um, and just a sense of wanting to prove to myself that I could be just fine without a dad and without men for that matter. I was kind of in that, like, you know, that mindset of I can do it on my own. And so that that was kind of what it looked like for me. And I also developed a pretty severe eating disorder in college. You know, I don't have to get into all the details tonight, but that was, you know, part of me wrestling with the grief. And I definitely had to get, you know, some counseling for that as well. Fortunately, I never went into, like I didn't have to go into a treatment program. I could have gotten to that point, but it was only by the Lord's miraculous intervention. I was delivered over a process of time, and I'm talking about a long process, from a pretty severe eating disorder. I don't know if I'm answering your question.
You did. You totally did. And
It
go
was, yeah, it was a lot of grief, though, like a lot of, for me, sadness, but also anger. Like, why me? Why did I have to be given this, deck of cards by God, so to say? Like, why couldn't I have been born into a different family? Like I really started to wrestle with God and ask those questions that I'd been too scared to ask until that point. So it, so yeah, my journey of grief involved asking a lot of questions and being very honest with God and with trusted people in my life.
And so how did you get peace from those questions? Because those are pretty serious. Why did you allow this guy? Why wasn't I born into a family with a mom and a dad? I know I went into, you're some kind of cruel dictator and I don't want no part of you, God. Sorry, but I mean, I was there. I was angry as well. So how did you get to a place of peace with that?
Well, first and foremost, I just remember having a real revelation, that God grieved with me.
Oh, that's good.
His heart broke with mine about my absent dad. That it was okay to grieve, it was okay to feel hurt, and that God felt that way too. And that um, he, he understood why I was feeling what I was, even more than me. And then secondly, what really helped bring me peace was knowing that in the gospel there is a purpose in my pain. That nothing I went through was in vain, but that God had a plan to redeem the brokenness of it all, way before I was even born. And just understanding more of the gospel of Jesus and like just what he really did on the cross and breaking the power of sin and giving us identity as children of God was really key for me. And then finally, I really had more peace when I really embraced the truth that I wasn't an accident, because I believed that lie for a long time, given the nature of my birth. I just, I kind of felt like, man, everyone else is like legitimate, you know what I mean? But like maybe God used me as an accident. Maybe I am one, because of my birth. And just, kind of feeling like an intruder on life. And I just remember, counseling and prayer and scripture coming together to show me that that God makes no accidents, and he'll even take what the enemy intended for evil, and he'll use it for good. And he already had a big plan to redeem, my story and use it for his glory. So I think those 3 points really were a turning point for me.
Oh, wow. I'm feeling emotional over here. I'm feeling emotional. Yes. Guys, I hope y'all heard what she said, that she was feeling like an intruder on life and feeling like she was an accident, and that she wasn't supposed to be here, but God makes no accidents. Lauren, wow. Yes. Okay. I'm putting it back. I'm putting it back together. But I do want to go back to grief. Just because not too long ago, I had someone reach out to me and say that they were viewing one of my videos and started crying and just could not stop crying. And they were asking me, when does it end? When does it stop? I think I've been asked that multiple times. When does it end? And I know for me personally, there are times, and I don't know when it's going to happen. I pulled this random scenario of seeing a father and a daughter at Target. Actually, it happened one time. I was looking at a webinar of this father and daughter. It was Michael Hyatt and his daughter, and he did something, like he said something to her, and it was cutesy and kind of like, and she was like, "Oh, Dad," it was something like that. That I'm doing a bad impersonation, but I just boohooed. I just boohooed because the relationship that they had, I knew that was not one that I had with my father. It was one I longed for, and I kind of grieved. And so, what I've shared with the girl I was talking to, and I've shared with others, that grief is ongoing. Do you find that to be the case, your case, that grief is ongoing?
For sure. I mean, I've told a lot of people that, grief is like an onion. It has all these layers to it. And just when you've gone through one layer, then there's another one to unpack. So, I mean, like you, I face a lot of grief at unexpected times and places. But, I've just grown to see it as this opportunity to draw closer to God. And, like you, I have a lot of times where I'll see something. Like I'll see a father and a daughter doing an activity together when I'm out and about. Maybe they're riding a bike together, or the dad has his daughter, up on his shoulders. I even wrote about in a blog post recently that I was at Jockey's, clothing store, and I look beside me and there's a dad buying a bra for his daughter, and like that totally hit me with grief, because I never had a dad to be there for me, especially during those awkward teenage years. And I just about fell apart there in the Jockey store. So I totally relate. But I think what the Lord keeps telling me time and time again is, well, Lauren, I'm giving you a picture of who I am to you, and who I was to you back then, where maybe your dad wasn't there for you, but I stood in that place and I was there. And I think sometimes God lets us. He wants to heal our memories, and so then He'll give us experiences that help us heal and move on. If that makes sense, like replace a negative memory with a positive one, and kind of see where God is in situations. I don't know if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm. I think it does, and I don't know if other people have had this experience, but as you grow in your relationship with the Lord, when you begin to look back, you can see how God was protecting you from certain things that maybe you might have been frustrated about or not understood at the time, but then you can look back and say, oh, wow, I think that was God that this happened, or that this person might not have been in my life at that time. It might have been better for that person not to be in my life, but that takes maturity and growth and time. It takes time to be able to look at things in that way. I want to shift a little bit, Lauren, and just talk about the church, because the church can be a place where everyone seems to be perfect. And I don't know what you, I grew up, we had these church fans, and the families on the church fans were so beautiful. First of all, they were all beautiful and they were all put together, hair, clothing, and they looked like there were no flaws. And sometimes church can look like that. I want to talk about your experience growing up in the church. Good, bad. Did people reach out to you? Did you have surrogate fathers, or what would you have liked the church to have done if they didn't do?
Sure. Well, I'll start off with the positive aspects of church for me. I mean, I was really blessed to grow up in a very close-knit, supportive church environment. Um, we were part of a church plant, and so, you know, there were you know, just a small number of families, and, you know, it just lended itself to more community and really getting to know people. So I was really blessed to be around a lot of godly families that were an example to me of what biblical marriage and parenting looks like. That was huge. Um, and I really saw firsthand believers support my mom as a single parent. Like for instance, there were families that would offer to watch me, you know, and let me stay at their home while my mom was working. You know, if I was like on a school break or something. So people, you know, really did step up to the plate on a lot of levels and support my mom. And, you know, so I did experience the body of Christ in a rich way. We were in the same church for 12 years, by the way. Up until the point that we moved from Atlanta to Savannah, and that's a whole different story. But yeah, and then that kind of begins a new season of church that was more difficult in some ways. But I guess all in all, I had tremendous support from the church. I really did. Like I had, you know, some of the fathers of my good friends really reached out to me. And I remember one in particular, like, taking me out one Valentine's Day when he knew I was really struggling with fatherlessness when I was in high school. And that meant the world to me, you know, just to have that experience. And he, you know, was trying to share an encouraging perspective about my story. And anyways, it was that experience of receiving a father's blessing, which is really important. Children need that, regardless of the home that they grow up in. And what's cool is that, you know, in Christ we have more than our blood family, and that's what we're supposed to experience that as Christians. I guess, you know, getting back to church though, and some of the difficult parts, I still felt an underlying legalism from the church about, you know, being about our situation with my mom being a single parent. You know, I think there were some subtle waves of legalism that came in, you know, just more indirectly over the years. So I did struggle to fit in at church in some ways. Now, I was kind of that goody two-shoes girl, you know. That was, you know, I was that perfectionist, high achiever. So, you know, I didn't really rock the boat, and I got along well with other people's children, and, you know, looked pretty well adjusted. But inside, I did feel pretty hurt by the legalism. And I always wondered if I was really accepted by people at church at some points. And I think I will say church experience got to be more difficult as I got older and had more baggage to deal with. I wish that I had a safer place in church in some ways to process that.
Yeah, because I'm thinking about just
Kind of
beginning to, what'd you say? I'm sorry.
Did you struggle with feeling alone? And not knowing how to get help from a church?
Yeah. I think also just, you know, when you get in these small groups, and I know not every church has small groups, but generally with the way the small group begins is you have to tell your story. You have to tell your history. And who wants to do that? You know, not me. You know, because when people have these cookie cutter stories, not saying everybody did, but you know, I feel like a lot of times my story kind of sticks out a little bit, and I just kind of like, you know, I pass, or I don't want to tell it today. I'm just thinking that can be kind of awkward. Now, but in growing up in the Black church, it was more common, I'm gonna be honest, to see families where the father either wasn't there, or we're dealing with now the second marriage. And there were some things happening with our family dynamic. Not saying it didn't happen in other races, but that made it a little bit more common, which is why, and I've written about it, why I didn't even realize that I was so different until I got to college. And I went to a historically Black girls' college, but more of them had fathers in their lives, and that's when I kind of realized, like, oh my goodness, I missed something. But before then, in my high school, a lot of people, fathers were not always in the picture.
Gotcha. Well,
I think I've kind of deviated. Go ahead.
no, I just was going to say, I mean, I think I had all in all, I mean, I was very blessed to have a very positive church experience for growing up in a single parent home. But I think I'm keenly aware that a lot of people don't, you know, and especially as they get, as like a, you know, as children get older, I think that's where they can fall between the cracks, so to say. Um, and I mean, I found a lot more support, honestly, outside the church with, you know, personal friends, and then just, you know, counseling that wasn't necessarily connected with the church. But I know churches can play a tremendous role. So it's I pray a lot that the church would be led of the Spirit and reaching out to the fatherless and really knowing how to do that, especially for women.
Mm-hmm. And I think that sometimes you're going to need parachurch ministries.
Yeah.
You're going to need some blogs, which is exactly why I created the Father Swap blog. And I know that's why you created Abba's Girl Forever, because we saw a vacuum in the church, in the traditional brick and mortar church, that was not speaking directly. I know they will talk about it periodically, maybe on Father's Day, which is coming up. Churches will talk about it. But the ache of the fatherless daughter, or the ache of the father wounded daughter, it happens on more than just June the 18th. You know,
Yeah.
it happens at Christmas. It happens at random times in July. It happens on your birthday. It happens, you know, and so you need parachurch ministries to step into that vacuum and say, I'm here 365 days a year. If you need some encouragement, I am here. We need that. And speaking of Father's Day, which is coming up, and this is generally the time when people who have been stuffing their father issues decide to unstuff and and say, "Oh my goodness, I'm hurting here. I'm crying. I don't know why." How do you deal with Father's Day, Lauren, or does it impact you at all?
Well, you know, of course, I have, you know, experienced grief on Father's Day like anyone would, um, with my circumstances. But like as I've healed more and just known more of my Heavenly Father, I think I've tried to shift my focus on less of what I didn't have in a dad and more on what I do have in my Heavenly Father. And really be intentional about recounting the ways that He's been faithful to me over the last year. Like, I've kept a prayer journal, and I especially remember on Father's Day just really trying to thank the Lord for specific ways that He was a father to me. So, you know, essentially I try to make it all about celebrating God and His father heart.
I love that. Mm-hmm.
So, you know, I'd like to be more intentional about it, you know, because it's something that, you know, is going to be a continual process. So.
Mm-hmm. I love that. I think that's so wise, you know, because it's something, it's a trigger. That day could be a trigger. But I hear you saying that you have chosen to be intentional about putting things in place so that you are not all in your feelings on Father's Day. Doing the prayer journal, recounting the things that God has done, how he's been faithful. I'm imagining that you have some scriptures. Do you have some go-to scriptures that you just kind of pull out?
Definitely, yeah. Well, my all-time favorite is Psalm 68:5. A father to the fatherless is God in his holy habitation. Um, and I'm trying to think of some others off the top of my head.
I like Romans 8:15. The spirit you have received has not made you a slave so that you live in fear. Rather, the spirit you have received has made you, am I saying something? Children. And thereby we cry, Abba, Father. I
Yeah.
totally botched that scripture. So go back and look it up, everybody. Go look it up. Romans 8:15.
Yes. And I was going to share one more thing about Father's Day.
Sure.
One thing I tried to do is share my story of knowing God as a father to someone else on Father's Day. Like pray about someone that maybe needs encouragement in that arena and reaching out to them, or shortly, maybe not on that day, depends, but like just really making an effort to give witness to God's faithfulness. So, you know, I think that's important. And, you know, scripture speaks about remembering what God has done. And, you know, I'm challenged to even make it more tangible, like to have like an Ebenezer stone, you know, vase or something. And I write on stones, you know, what God has done for me as my father, you know, and kind of collect this vase of stones, you know, that really point to who God's been in the last year, if that makes sense.
It makes so much sense. It is so beautiful. And you are someone who could rightfully just still be sad and still be angry. But I hear you saying that I am moving towards God. I am taking the pain that I experienced and loving on other people, which is the key. That is how we are going to make it, by focusing on others and taking up our cross and loving people, though we may feel pain. That's how God heals us. That's how God loves us. That's how we see him. So yes, 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 Lauren. So I have one question. I have two questions that I definitely want to ask you. The first one, you can plead the fifth. If you want to plead the fifth, I will accept that.
Oh dear. What's the question?
The question is, do you think you will ever contact your father?
Well, I will say that I've been more open to contacting him over the last year or two. Because before that, I didn't really, I mean, I didn't feel a burning desire, like an urgency in meeting him. You know, so I don't feel like that's been necessary for me to move on and be healed, emotionally and all that. But, you know, over the last year or two, I have pondered whether it would be fruitful to try to contact him. And so it's actually something I'm praying about. And it's kind of funny. My mom actually joked with me about this TLC reality show called Long Lost Family, I believe. She was watching it, and I don't know if you're familiar with it, but it shows children meeting their parents for the first time. So my mom was joking with me. She was like, Lauren, you'd be a perfect candidate for it.
Oh, wow.
So it was just kind of funny because she brought it up a while ago. But yeah, I guess what I'm trying to say is that it's a possibility, but I'm not sure if I'm going to move forward on it yet. So
okay, that would definitely be something. That would be something, you know. And I always, well, not always, but if I said it at some point, I don't know. I've said so much stuff, I don't know when I said it, but I know I have said it's something that you have to be ready for. If your father is not in your life and then you go to meet him, because you just don't know. You just don't know what he's doing or how he's living or how he'll respond. But sometimes it's good to just meet him. But I'll keep asking you every now and then. I'll ask.
Yes, I'll let you know for sure. You know,
Yeah,
and
please do that. Okay, so this is the last question. I would just love for you to share some encouragement to a woman who may be watching that's never met her father, that it's a real source of pain for her. She's smack dab in it. She feels rejected, she feels abandoned, she feels unloved. What would you say to encourage her?
well, you know, I would just first of all, I'd want to give her a big hug and say, I'm right there with you, sister. I've been there. I feel you. I know what that's like. And I would just say, you know, just let yourself be embraced by the Heavenly Father, because He's there. He's there whether you can feel it or not. He's more real than anything you can feel or imagine. Um, but run to Him, don't run away from Him. And I'd also say that just the grace and love of God surpasses any hurt of an earthly father, um, and that God grieves with you. You can trust Him with your grief. You can trust Him to heal your heart. That hurt doesn't have to define your identity. And it may leave a scar, but it's going to be a testimony of God's grace and make you an even more empowered woman in Jesus Christ. So that's what I would say. And the final thing is, your greatest pain can be your biggest platform for Jesus if you'll surrender that pain to Him. You know, that God is just so committed to you being an Abby's girl, you know, lavishly loved, passionately pursued daughter, and He has a plan for your story.
But Lauren, you are making me upset again. I mean, seriously, yes. That's the other scripture you said. It's 1 John 3:1. That's my favorite one.
And you know what? Can I say one more? I don't remember
Yeah.
the reference, but it popped into my mind. Those who sow in tears shall reap with shouts of joy. And I believe that's a promise for the fatherless daughter. You know, she may have sown in tears year after year, but, you know, when she is walking with Jesus, you know, He's going to bring a harvest of joy regardless of her story. And that's a promise to claim. You know, it's ours to claim. Not because of what we've done, but because of what Christ has done. You know, that's the promise.
I agree. Another one is blessed are they that mourn, for they shall be comforted. That and my other one, I use this one all the time. Cast your cares upon the Lord, for He careth for you. You know, that God, He cares for us. His great love is so big and massive that He would pick somebody like me, loud and brash and uncouth, and say, start a blog. And He would pick someone like Lauren, who's sweet and southern and kind and soft spoken. And here we are doing a YouTube video, for goodness sakes. We met on the internet.
I know.
And it's all for the purpose of encouraging you who are watching this YouTube channel. That's the love of God. That is it right there. It's
That's
not
right.
always, you know, going to come to you in the form of something somebody says at church, or it can come at Target or Walmart or Payless or Neiman's.
I know. I mean, God is so creative, and He's, God is always pursuing a relationship with His daughters. I mean, think about it. We all want to pursue, and God is always pursuing us, and He'll go to great lengths to convey His heart to you. So I hope that those of you listening have gotten just a greater glimpse of God's heart for you. So that's my prayer.
Lauren, she is so Southern. I just love her. I really do. I need more of you, so maybe we should spend time together. And
I know. I need to meet you in person one day in Atlanta.
Yes.
I need to go visit my old stomping grounds there in Atlanta and come meet you. So
please, come meet me.
Have to make it happen.
We would really light up your life, literally. Okay, so you guys, I want to thank y'all for watching this segment of our live stream hangouts, When You've Never Met Your Father, with Lauren Ulrich. It has been amazing, and I hope you've been encouraged. I certainly have. I've been moved to tears, which is not much because I'm a little weepy at times. And I want to invite you guys to come back next month on June 18, where I'm going to switch up the mediums. I'm going to Facebook Live to talk about when Father's Day is difficult. Yes, I think that's the perfect time to be on Facebook talking about it, when everybody that has stuffed their Father's Day issues will be unpacking them. Some of them will. So I'm going over there, and I would love for you guys to join me. Please know that I'm praying for you. I really am praying for you and lifting you up before the Father, asking God to reveal His audacious love for you. I really am doing that, guys. Be encouraged and know that God sees you, He loves you, and He cares. Thank you so much for spending time with us. Thank you, Lauren. Lauren, say goodbye.
Thank you. I had a blast. This was such a blessing.
It was a blessing. And you guys, I would love for you to visit Lauren's blog. As you can see, she talks about some things that I don't talk about on my blog. I didn't experience. And I was just telling her when we were preparing for this, the more the merrier, because this issue of fathers and daughters and what you had, what you didn't have, or how you experienced a father wound or father absent, is so massive. The experiences are so varied and so unique. So we need more women to speak into this issue and provide a voice and provide encouragement for other women. So I'm excited for you to check out her blog, and maybe we need to start a blog. I don't know. But
yes, and I got to give a shout out to Kia. Her blog inspired me to even consider writing a blog one day. So she's doing some fabulous work over there at the Father Swap.
Thank you, Lord. See, then you keep making me cry. I refuse to cry. I'm not crying. So thank y'all for joining us. You guys have a great rest of the night or day whenever you're watching this. Take care. Bye-bye.